Could we just have a roll call before we start officially? Just so, because I can't see everybody's faces. The gentleman with the bookcase behind him, can you just sit up a little bit higher? That's it. That's better.
I move the screen instead.
Okay. I'm going to do the formal introduction in a minute. But can I just ask, I'm Councillor Andrew Hodson. I'm chairing this meeting. Would you introduce yourselves, the other two councillors, please?
I'm Councillor George Davis.
Councillor Tony Norbury.
Now we are. Did you get those, Mr. Craig? Did you get those names? Right. I take it you're Duncan Craig, the barrister.
Indeed. Good morning, everybody.
Oh, good morning. And there's a lady sitting on top of your head. What's her name? You've got your mute button on. We can't hear you. The lady.
Natalie, you need to take the mute button off. It's on the left. On your screen, you'll see a microphone. You need to just switch that off.
Have you got it? If you press your screen, there's icons come up. Is it what, Mr. Craig? Is that Natalie? Is it Natalie? Natalie what?
Taylor.
And who's she?
A proposed DPS.
The proposed DPS. Okay, well, that's everybody who's going to appear at the moment, apart from other people coming in, like councillors who are objecting at the moment.
Mr. Sahota should be. Mr.
Okay.
Sahota.
So I'll just make some announcements, then I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay. I've got to read this out formally. Can everyone hear me? This meeting will be webcast and retained on the council website. For those at home viewing the website, I would like to inform you that if you look at the video, you will see a resource tab. Select this and a link to the agenda will appear on the right hand side. This will allow you to open the agenda in a PDF format and follow the discussion and debate. My role is to ensure that the committee runs smoothly, having regards to the procedure, behaviour and ethics. Okay. Now, we've had an appointment of chair, which is me, Andrew Hodson. Are there any declarations of interest from the other two councillors?
No.
No.
Okay. We've introduced ourselves, so everybody knows who that is. Could I just introduce the other officers? Could you make yourself known who you are, please? Margaret? You got Margaret O'Donnell?
Yes, I'm Margaret O'Donnell. I'm the licensing manager. Chair, if I could also make an observation, another person has joined the meeting, indicating Jaspal Mann has joined the meeting.
Okay, I'll come on to them in a minute.
That's Mr. Sahota.
Yeah.
He has his own email address, so he's borrowed somebody else's.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'll come back on to that then.
Mr. Sahota being the applicant, forgive me.
Yeah. The committee clerk, could you just announce yourself, please?
My name's Anne Beecham and I'm the committee clerk.
The borough solicitor.
Hello, my name is Ali Bayati. I'm the legal advisor for the committee. Good morning.
Good morning. We've got another ward councillor just come on, is that right? No? Have we brought her in from the lobby?
No, Chair.
She's being asked to join now, councillor.
Is she there now? Is everybody... could you just introduce yourself, please? Councillor McNaught and Julie, could you just announce who you are and what you're here for? You're on mute.
You're mute.
I'm not normally accused of being quiet, am I? Right. Okay, well, thank you for inviting me. I'm Julie McManus.
Just want to introduce yourself, that's all.
Yes, I'm Julie McManus and I'm one of the councillors in Bitson St James ward in Birkenhead.
Okay, thank you. As this is a new process, most of the councillors who are doing this at the moment have done it before, but I'll give everyone plenty of time to speak. You'll all get 2 opportunities. We'll take it slowly so everyone gets a fair hearing, but we can all bear with one another, okay, because we do have little hiccups every now and then, but it has worked in the past, okay? So,
Excuse me, Chair, could I just
yes.
ask everyone mutes their microphones unless they want to speak, please?
Yes.
Thanks.
Has everyone done that? Okay. Can I just ask the licensing officer to confirm to the licensing authority that all the appropriate notice and supporting documentation has been sent?
Yes, Chair, I can confirm that.
Is there any further documentation that we need to look at that we haven't received in the past?
I think supporting documentation that has been received has been sent to all members.
Okay. So is everyone happy with all the evidence they've received? Yes. Okay. Mr. Craig, I take it you're going to cross-examine the ward councillor after she's made a statement and what have you. So is everyone happy to be cross-examined?
I wasn't expecting to be cross-examined this morning, but I'm happy to take questions.
Yes, Councillor McManus, don't worry. I shan't be having too many questions for you.
It's not going to be like Perry Mason, I can assure you that.
I'm afraid not. I'm nowhere near as good as that, I'm afraid.
Okay. We will now hear and determine the application with reference to the Council's statement of licensing policy, the statutory guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 and the 4 licence objectives, which are A, the prevention of crime and disorder, B, public safety, C, prevention of public nuisance, and D, protection of children from harm. And I'll ask you now, Margaret, if you could outline the facts of the application and the relevant representations received from the parties. Okay?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The purpose of the hearing this morning is to consider an application for a premises licence under the provisions of the Licensing Act 2003. The application is made by Bakhtar Singh Sahota and relates to premises located at One Stop News and Booze, Victoria Street, Birkenhead. The premises did previously hold a premises licence, which was revoked by the Licensing Act Subcommittee on the 17th of May 2017. The application today is for the sale of alcohol 7 days a week from 8 a.m. until 9 p.m, with the premises open from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. As members are aware, as part of the application, the applicant has to submit an operating schedule, and that is shared with all responsible authorities. In response to that, Merseyside Police have had discussions with the applicant, and the applicant has agreed to conditions relating to CCTV, the training of staff, and spirits being kept behind the counter, as well as a notice advising of the refusals policy. So should the application be granted today, they are the proposals put forward by Merseyside Police and have been accepted by the applicant. In respect of representations, a representation has been received from Councillor McManus, who is in attendance at the hearing today, and the representation relates to concerns of antisocial behaviour, which Councillor McManus advises is currently a problem within the vicinity of the premises, which it is concerned will be exacerbated should the application be granted. This representation is supported by Councillor Kenny, a ward councillor in the area, and Magenta Living, and they are the details of the application and the considerations for today, Chair.
Could you just, I was switching all my phones off, I was very naughty, someone was trying to get hold of me. Could you just confirm again the hours that we're looking at, just so I've got them written down?
Yes, Chair. 7 days a week for the sale of alcohol, 8 a.m. until 9 p.m, with the premises open to the public from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone, George, Tony, do you want to ask any questions on those, what we just heard?
No, I'm okay. They're straightforward enough, yeah.
George?
And I agree. Same again.
Okay. Right. Before we start, Mr. Craig, we've noticed that Jasper Mal, is it?
No, Chair. That will be Mr. Sahota. He doesn't have his own email address, so he's piggybacking off somebody else's.
Yeah, but that was the previous owner, wasn't it? The person, Jasper Mal.
Yeah, that's his daughter.
So is she involved in the business still?
No,
She's nothing to do with this.
not at all. No, I've already
Okay.
asked the question.
Sorry?
I said I've already asked that question, and I have to make the point. If it was a ruse, it's the worst ruse ever. If he's using her email address, so
Well, I agree with you, but we've seen worse things than that, I can assure you.
yeah, thinking about it, probably so have I. To be fair, Chair, yeah, but no. And look, I'll move on to that when I make my submissions.
Okay, that's fine. You can leave it at that then. Do you want to start to talk with your support for the application then?
I will, Chair. Thank you. I do have one slight disadvantage. I have all the papers, but I don't have a paginated. I couldn't on your website this morning locate it, and I was being pulled all over the place. So I'll just start by apologising for that. If that makes things slightly more complicated, then I do apologise for that at this stage. But this is an application for the grant of a premises licence. It's been very helpfully set out by your officer, and indeed it's for the sale of alcohol by retail for consumption off the premises between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Relatively modest hours. The applicant has taken into account issues around street drinking. In fact, and I've spoken at some length with Natalie this morning, who's there. I can see you, Natalie. Hello, Natalie. Who is the proposed DPS. She is from the area. In actual fact, she lives over the road. She's well aware of the issues in the local area and perhaps more generally in relation to antisocial behaviour and street drinking in particular. So and it may well be that you have one or two questions for her in that regard. The application by Mr. Sahota. So Mr. Sahota will have although he will have ultimate responsibility as the licence holder if you deem it appropriate to grant this application. Mrs. Sahota will have no day-to-day involvement in the running of the business. That will be down to Natalie. She will be the manager. She will have responsibility for the sale of alcohol and for the ensuring that the conditions are adhered to and that the licensing objectives are promoted. I'm grateful for the indication from your officer. There are a number of conditions that have been offered. I won't read them out verbatim. You'll be doubtless delighted to hear, but they relate to what one would expect in an application such as this regarding staff training, incident logs, CCTV recordings, firefighting equipment, the usual stuff around notices, litter patrols, challenge 25, and a refusals register. And then obviously Merseyside Police have, I believe it's Merseyside Police at Wirral, is that correct? Yes, thank you. Merseyside Police have haven't made representations, but they've made observations in relation to the application, and so there are further conditions that are proposed to be added to the licence as well. Obviously there are. I will turn to the representations shortly. I would just make the point, and I'm bound to make this point, that the Section 182 guidance at 9.12 makes express reference to responsible authorities and the fact that they are experts in their own particular field. The police being the main source of advice in relation to crime and disorder, and I would submit that certainly significantly antisocial behaviour does fall within the remit of the police, although it is a matter of nuisance as well. But again, environmental health haven't made any representation. So I'll just make the point that there are no responsible authorities involved. That doesn't mean, of course, that Councillor McManus isn't right to make representations where she feels it's in the best interests of her constituents, and clearly she's done that. I have submitted some. This application was made by an agent, PR retail consultants. Robert Jordan, very experienced. He's been in licensing for, well, I think certainly since around the time the Licensing Act was brought into force in November 2005. And he has provided me with the documents that he's provided for them, which dovetail with the conditions that are proposed to be on the license. I'll just take you through them. At page 1 is the register for training. I don't know if you have that supplemental pack in front of you, members. Good. You have a post at page 2, a Challenge 22 poster, a proxy sales poster at page 3, page 4, notification of CCTV being recorded. At page 5, you've got the notice advising customers to respect the needs of local residents. You've got the DPS authorization at page 6, which is required under any premises license which authorises the sale of alcohol. You've got the refusals register at page 7, and then perhaps not altogether helpfully then a subsequent number of pages which basically are exactly the same. So apologies for that. At page 20, you've got the incident book, and again, a number of pages around that. 32, you've got the CCTV log. Again, that relates to a specific condition. And then at 38 in that pack, you have a notification around child sexual exploitation, which is always to be welcomed in any licensed premises, given what took place in Yorkshire several years ago. So from that point of view, that's bound to be welcomed by everybody, I'm sure. And then a compliance manual that deals with the licensing objectives, and in particular in relation to an off-license business. And so again, I won't go through those in any detail, but doubtless you've read those thoroughly. And then lastly, of course, very topical at the moment, at page 66 is a right to work checklist, and clearly that's important for any business, not just a licensed business, especially at the moment. So there is a comprehensive range of documents in place to provide a framework for the premises to purposefully promote the licensing objectives. Just dealing with the representations, I would submit on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Sahota, that these representations are all of a speculative nature. They raise concerns about the what is felt will happen if the license is granted, but there's no evidence to support the contentions in there. Clearly, there are issues within the premises. Within the local area. I've done hearings at Wirral before, and I'm well aware, particularly with regards to street drinking. I know it's a big problem in the area. I'm well aware of that in Birkenhead in particular, and so I would just say that is what conditions are for, and clearly responsible authorities have looked at those conditions and have deemed them to be proportionate and appropriate in the circumstances. I'll just deal with Mr. Sahota last. It was his daughter who had it. There were issues with the license. I'm not going to hide away from that. Mr. Sahota, as I said, he won't be involved in business. He's owned the freehold for 25 years, and he's simply looking to license the business to run it in a lawful fashion. Jasper will have no involvement in the business. It is within your remit to add further conditions to this application. You certainly you have that power within Section 18, if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head, I hope I've got that right, of the Licensing Act. I'm pretty sure it is Section 18, to add further conditions you deem appropriate. If you don't want her to be involved in the business, there's no issue. Certainly, I have no instructions to the contrary. If you want to put that on as a condition, that's it's certainly not disproportionate in the circumstances. She won't be involved in the business. Those are my clear instructions. So on that basis, there's no issue with that condition being placed on the application. So that is it. A relatively modest hours, I would suggest. A number of purposed and targeted conditions that are appropriate for this type of premises, and those conditions have been finalised in consultation with the local police force. So for all those reasons, I would invite you to grant the application, subject to consideration on whether you think excluding Jaspal Singh from the operation of the business, management of the business, control of the business, or all three is appropriate. If those concerns are in any way founded, as is the case with any licensed premise, there are robust review mechanisms in place. That's what the review process is for. So hopefully that would go some way to ease any concerns that Councillor McManus and those others who've made have made. So, Chair, that is the application.
Thank you. You know you'll be coming back later on anyway, don't you?
Yeah.
Thank you for going through all the different conditions you're happy to put on. I'm sure the other two councillors will agree. We have read them all and made sure we're aware of what, you know, what we realise you've got to go through everything with us. Yeah. Right, Councillor McManus, I don't want you to make a statement. Have you any just simple questions of the applicant at this point? You will have a chance to put forward what you've come for today, but not at this point. Are there any questions you want to ask?
No, thank you.
Okay, that was nice and simple. Now then, it's now the chance for the three councillors who are on the committee to ask questions. Mr. Craig.
Yes.
You,
sorry, you just cut
yes.
out then, sorry.
Do you want to answer for Natalie, or is she quite happy to ask fairly simple questions herself?
Well, if you direct the questions through me, and if it's better Natalie answers, and if you specifically want her to answer, well, there will be some questions she will be far better placed to answer than me, I'm sure.
It's easier when you're sitting shoulder to shoulder and you can whisper in each other's ears, but at this point you can't do that, can you?
No, I'm afraid not.
I'll call you Natalie. Is that okay? Can you hear me, Natalie? Yeah.
I think she's still on mute. Natalie, you need to take the mute off. There's a mute button.
I don't know how you're going to converse with her, but you work opposite. You live opposite at the moment where this establishment is. Are you experiencing antisocial behaviour at the moment?
No, not at all.
Right. You've heard about all the conditions that have been proposed for the premises. What training have you had for carrying out all those procedures?
I've done a licensing course, and we've got some worksheets to go through and everything. And I understand the proxy sale and no underage drinking.
And have you worked in a premises like this before and had any experience?
No.
Okay. George, do you want to ask any questions?
Andrew, not at this present moment in time. I will come back on them.
All right. Tony?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm just aware that these premises will be embedded into the local community in Victoria Street, somewhere where you come from, Natalie. I'm just wondering how much representation or contact have you had with the local residents? I know you're one of them, but
Yeah.
how much contact and regarding this establishment being licensed, have there been any contact with the local residents and to seek their opinions? Yeah.
We've had a few opinions and they're all up for it. And I know most of the residents around here, I know all the youths. And if there was any trouble or anything, I just asked them to move on. I know most of them.
Okay.
Thank you, Natalie.
Has the committee asked enough questions of Natalie? Yep. I'll bring in the legal advisor now. Do you want to ask any questions of the applicants?
Thank you. Yes, I unfortunately some of the exchanges I lost. So I heard you didn't have, Natalie, any experience of licensed premises in the past. Is that right?
No.
Okay. All right. Have you had any experience of managing at all in the past?
Yeah. I worked in a local cafe, and I was a manager of that as well. So I know customer relations and to work with the public.
Okay, and are you working there now?
Yes.
You are. Okay, and are you? How is it set up? What's the how is it staffed, and what are your hours and what have you?
We've got a lady. I do as many hours as I can at the moment. We've got a lady on maternity leave, and she's due back at the end of August. And hopefully we could be training some other people up.
Okay, so at the moment you work there
14 hours will be.
And there's no one else is there other than this lady who's on maternity leave, is there?
The girl that's covering her, her maternity leave.
Oh right, okay. Okay. And if the application is granted, what's your kind of presence at the shop going to be like? How many hours are you going to be covering, and who's covering in your absence?
As many as possible until Chelsea comes back, the girl from maternity leave. And I'm in the process of training some people up at the moment, a girl up at the moment.
Okay. When you say training, how do you mean? Are you training in terms of...
Like behind the counter at the moment, but we're going through all the work, the paperwork and everything for, obviously, if we get the licence back. And
all right.
Obviously trying to help her go through all that as well, and hopefully try and put it on a course.
Okay. A course for what?
I don't know if there's any courses out there, to help with the licensing laws and.
Okay. Have you got someone there with you? I can hear someone.
It's just my son in the background because I'm not pretty good on computers.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. And I think that's it for me now, Chair. Thank you.
Margaret, have you any questions you may want to ask? Margaret O'Donnell.
I'm here, but right, okay. Sorry, just unmuting. Just really, if the applicants can just put forward a little bit more about the shop itself, if members could have a little bit more information about what is currently sold at the shop, what proportion of alcohol would the percentage of sales be in relation to alcohol. I note from Mr. Craig's submissions that there is within the pack a document which refers to record, sort of checking the right to work of individual members. And maybe if we could ask what the recruitment process would be at the premises. We've just heard from Natalie that currently she seems to be the main person working there. And really, I'm understanding, and I think just some clarification around the fact that Mr. Sahota is the freehold of the property, but what is his link? Is he leasing out the property to somebody else who will then, that's what I think we could just understand a little bit more about how the premises is currently operating and operating going forward. So, a simple thing is, who gets the profits from the premises? Is it Natalie? Is Natalie managing it and running it and leasing it, or is Mr. Sahota still going to be the owner, etc.?
Natalie, do you want to answer that? I think you're probably better placed than me.
See, I'm just the manager, so I don't get none of the profits. So I don't know how I can really answer that.
Well, yeah, I guess the answer is Mr. Sahota will own the business, but Natalie will be responsible for its management. That's better, Natalie. I can see all of your face now. I could only see you from the nose up before. Certainly, I mean, that's not an unusual arrangement. That's not unheard of. It's a perfectly reasonable question. But of course, it's right that Mr. Sahota is conscious of the fact that he's ultimately responsible. He's ultimately the license holder, and he'll bear the responsibility for the promotion of the licensing objectives. In terms of
so sorry, just on that then. So would it be Mr. Sahota employing the staff at the premises?
Yes, it would.
And if we could maybe just hear either from Mr. Sahota himself, but how he will recruit staff, what measures he will put in place to ensure that they do have the right to work.
Mr. Sahota, are you able to answer that? Can you hear us, Mr. Sahota?
Is Mr. Sahota with us?
He is. I think he is anyway. I can see JM on the screen. Hello, Mr. Sahota.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Margaret, do you want to ask the question again? And Mr. Sahota, do you want to do that?
Yes, Mr. Sahota, just wonder if you could run through how your business is currently operating and how you will be recruiting staff at the premises. We've heard from Natalie that she's currently the main person working there at the moment. I think I've frozen, so just turn that off. I'll turn it back on in a second.
I'm Mr. Sahota's daughter, Miss Parrot Kamal Sumbal. Is it okay if I just relay what you're saying to him, because he can't hear properly on this device?
That's okay.
Is that okay?
That is
Yes.
okay.
My name's Prit Kamal Sumbal.
Have you got a camera there? Could you put your camera on?
If I put the camera on, the connection goes.
All right, well,
I can show you, Mr. Sahota. I'll try and put it on. Just 1 second.
Chair, maybe if others who are not speaking, maybe if they turn this off. Would that
right, we've got you now. We've got you now.
Okay, and then I'm his daughter, Miss. You can call me Vicky. It's Vicky Sumbal.
Okay, Vicky. Margaret will ask the question again, if you can,
Yeah.
Margaret.
Okay. Vicky, we're just looking for some background in terms of how the premises is currently operating, what type of products you sell, what the plan is going forward in terms of the premises, what proportion of alcohol you are looking to introduce to the premises should you be granted a license, and how you will go forward in terms of recruiting staff.
Okay, so normally, obviously, when we recruit staff, a lot of the time, they're normally customers that will come in the shop that my dad or my mom or like somebody will know. They'll ask they'll ask if there's any work going. If we deem them appropriate, then normally it's a case of, obviously, we want to know like work history, if they've done any of this kind of work before, passport, driving license, any other identification, and I think going forward, anybody that would be recruited would obviously go on a personal license course. I think in the past they have had, they've been on courses run by like the local council just to make them aware of like the rules and regulations. Products that are on sale at the moment are just your regular convenience store product, groceries, sweets, crisps, cigarettes. It's not a very big shop. The proportion of alcohol it's going to be mainly behind the counter. It's not a huge premises where people can sort of come in and walk around and kind of pick up kind of whatever they want. A lot of the alcohol is going to be behind the counter as it was before.
Margaret, can I just ask a question before? Vicky, you said when people come into the store, they may ask your father if they can have a job and things like that.
Yeah.
What's your father doing in the store? I thought he wasn't going to be working there or running it, or...
He doesn't work there, but obviously he's the owner. So if somebody's come in and asked Natalie for a job, or, my dad's still around, he does the cash and carry and, things like that. He's like the day-to-day sort of running like the cash and carry so
he is working there then?
He's not working. He's kind of like, I don't know how you would call it, maybe semi-retired, but obviously deliveries and stock and stuff, he's still in control of that.
Okay. Margaret, do you want to finish?
No, thank you, Chair. As I say, it's just really for members and to have an understanding of
who work with the shop. Ultimately, that's decision.
Vicky, can you just wait until I invite you to speak? Otherwise, it gets very confusing. All right. I will bring you back in a second. Go on, Margaret.
Okay. Yes, and that's fine. And I suppose the supplementary question is obviously Vicky is assisting her father today, whether or not she has any involvement with the premises currently.
Go on, Vicky, you can speak now.
Sorry?
Margaret just asked you, Margaret O'Donnell asked you, you're assisting your father at the moment. Do you have anything to do with the day-to-day running of the store?
No, I don't. I work elsewhere.
What do you do?
I manage a convenience store.
Where's that?
On Norman Street.
Okay. Do the other two councillors want to ask Vicky any questions while we're all here? George or Tony?
No, thanks, Chair.
No, it's all right, Tom. Thanks,
Okay, Margaret, have you finished?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't know whether
Okay.
Vicky wanted to repeat what she said when we couldn't hear her.
Well, I went off for a little bit, but I got the gist of what was being said. Is everybody happy that Vicky's made her statement? Are you happy, Mr. Craig?
Yeah, I would just, I think what Vicky was, I'm trying to foreshadow what she was trying to say, and I was going to make the point myself, that in terms of the day-to-day management, from a retail perspective, in terms of interface with customers, taking money, stocking the shelves, dealing with things like that will be down to Natalie. And I suppose from a going to the cash and carry and non-customer interface, then this is supposed to deal with that. So clearly within the, right, thank you, Vicky. And within the context of that, clearly it's appropriate, absolutely appropriate that Vicky, that Natalie is the DPS, because that's the person who's ultimately, what we're dealing with here is the retail sale of alcohol. That's what the licensable activity is. And so it's absolutely right that the person who deals with that is the DPS, because the responsibility then rests with them. So does that crystallise what you were sort of going to say, Vicky? Is that?
Yeah, that's right.
Great, thank you. There we go, Chair. Thank you very much.
Are you happy with all that then, Mr. Craig?
I am indeed, thank you.
You know you'll be coming back again later. Okay, Councillor McManus, this is your moment in time now. You can give your statements of why you're opposing the application.
Thank you, Chair.
And you will be getting brought back in again later as well, okay?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Really, mine is just purely a statement. This is an area with a mainly elderly population, who many of them suffer with antisocial behaviour from what I would say are alcohol or drug-infused teenagers. There are two pubs, the Queen's and the Sea Dog, in very close proximity, and with various other outlets selling alcohol nearby. I mean, I'm not forgetting we are still, very close to walking to Birkenhead, and there's lots of outlets there. There are two primary schools very close by to this shopping Victoria Street, those being Cathcart Street and the Priory School, along with the Birkenhead Early Excellence Centre, all with very impressionable young people. I can't tell you the number of residents' meetings that all three Bits and St James councillors have attended, along with police officers, Wirral Safer Hub and Magenta Homes. The antisocial behaviour has caused residents, particularly in Banning Close, to feel, and this is what I've been told by them, like prisoners in their own homes. They certainly don't want to go out much beyond tea time. And they chose not to come here and represent themselves today, although I did ask them, as they're fearful of any repercussions from being the target of more antisocial behaviour. And the antisocial behaviour at the moment may well have reduced because we're in a partial lockdown. And I think that when that's raised, we would have issues again. Again, that's speculative, but it's as I see it as a ward councillor. These alcohol-infused youngsters choose to use Banning Close in particular as a cut-through, and anyone who knows the area knows that there's lots of small bungalows there for elderly people and are less able-bodied people to have as their homes. And it's used as a cut-through, and very often the police, when they arrive, can't get them because they've escaped through one of these cut-throughs in Banning Close. Now, you might well say that with other outlets in very close proximity to this, and those intent on being fueled with alcohol will go to one of those other outlets anyway. What's the problem in having another one? Well, my response to that is, why do we need another one? I think we've enough already. And just finally, I just want you to think about this. If my mum lived in Banning Close, and my family are from this area, my mum was brought up around there, but if my mum still lived around Banning Close or in that near vicinity of this establishment, would I be concerned about another outlet selling alcohol? Well, you better would. And I would simply ask that the panel consider that question themselves. Thank you.
Okay. I wasn't not listening to you. I've just got Banning Close up on Google Maps, so I was just making sure I'm okay with what you're saying about the area and all the cut-throughs. All right.
Thank you, Chair.
You will be at a chance to come back in later as well. Okay, if you listen to what everybody's saying, and then you might think, oh, okay, Mr. Craig, do you want to ask some questions?
Not too many, and possibly only one, depending on the answer. When you say repercussions, these residents you've spoken to, I just want to be clear, you're not in any way inferring repercussions from the applicant. You just...
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, that's fine. No more questions, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay. George, Tony, any questions?
Yes, George. Yes, Chair. Sorry.
It's okay. Different times.
Just.
I'm aware that Councillor McManus paints a picture of the area, and she will know, being the councillor on the ground, regarding this. But I've noticed that there's been no objection from the police. There's no representations made from the police. I'm just wondering, if the area was that bad, and the licence would affect crime and disorder, then why the police haven't participated in this?
Thank you for that, Councillor Norbury. I don't know. I can't answer that. All I can tell you is I'm extremely disappointed because I know the number of residents that have called 111 in the main and reported, when they've been experiencing problems. I've sat in meetings we've mainly used the flats in Beckwith Street to hold our meetings with Magenta Police and Safer Wirral Hub, who've also been involved. So I'm disappointed that they haven't made representations, but I can't obviously speak for them. All I can do is speak up for the residents that I represent. Thank you.
Okay.
One more question, Chair, just to follow on, if I may, if you bear with me. Natalie, who also lives in the area, and she's going to be the DPS in the shop, paints a very different picture. She lives in the area, and she's saying that there isn't a problem. So I'm a bit confused, to be honest with you.
Well, I obviously can't speak for Natalie, but I can only speak for the residents that have called me out on numerous occasions at numerous times into the evening. And I can assure you, Councillor Norbury, there is a problem with antisocial behaviour. And I think as well, antisocial behaviour can be, dependent perhaps on your age. You may feel more vulnerable than perhaps I wouldn't feel as vulnerable as somebody my mum's age. But as I said before, we've a lot of elderly people living in that area.
Okay, that was the question I was going to ask Tony.
That was the question I was going to ask Andrew. Exactly.
Great minds think alike.
Andrew, can I just come back on Natalie in some ways, in terms of the comment you made before about there being you felt there was no problems at all in the area, and Councillor McManus has explained to us that from her point of view and a councillor's point of view, there are major problems in the area, and the police are aware. So in terms of being the person in charge of the shop, how do you feel, and have you had any training in terms of the Licensing Act, in terms of Challenge 25? Have you had any experience of that? Yes.
No, not really. I understand the Challenge 25. So.
But you've had no training?
Not that I'm aware of. Only the training with the licensing, when I done my licensing course.
For your personal licence, Natalie, yeah?
Licence course, yeah.
Do you want to explain what Challenge 25 is for the hearing?
It's just, obviously you've got to be 18 to buy alcohol, but you've got to look 25, and if you don't look 25, then just ask for ID.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, hiya, it's Vicky. Can I just jump in here a minute?
Yes.
Okay. Can I just make a point that all antisocial behaviour is not just involved in alcoholism. It's not just got to do with alcohol. Now, if you're a responsible seller and you're going to be, selling alcohol responsibly to not underage people, obviously you're going to ID people that come in that you don't know, that you know are not of age. So, you can't just associate antisocial behaviour with selling alcohol. It's just common sense. Antisocial behaviour doesn't just stem from alcohol.
Okay. Just to make you feel comfortable, Vicky, I've sat on 800 applications and more, so I know what you're saying and I do understand. All right. It's a fair point what you've just said, though. All right.
Yeah, and also, if you've got a good rapport with your customers.
Vicky, you can come back in a minute. I've just got to ask the borough solicitor if he has any questions of the councillor.
No, thank you, Chair. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Right. Normally we don't go like this, Vicky, but because we're in a sort of unusual situation, what did you want to say? Vicky? No? Right, okay. She might catch us later.
Excuse me, Chair. I think Councillor McManus has indicated she wants to say something.
You can say later on. We're only asking questions of you at the moment, Councillor McManus. If you've got a thought, write it down. When you come back later, you can then say it. Okay. Otherwise, we go all over the place. Right. Actually, we come to the point where you can make your final points now. Have you collected yourself, Councillor McManus?
I have.
Right,
Not that Mum collected.
This is
yeah,
your final address. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I don't really want to repeat what I've already said. You know, you quite clearly know the concerns of some of the residents in the area. I think just to sum up, really, my final question would be, my final statement: how comfortable would you feel, or you know, if you had elderly parents living in one of those bungalows, you know, how comfortable would you feel issuing another licence for alcohol in this area that's already saturated? And just finally, to pick up on a point that was just noted, you know, where you look at, you know, that the shop would look to be a responsible seller of alcohol, and I'm not here to dispute that. All I would say is that in particular the area around Banning Close, because we've got an area of green there where young people do gather and drink alcohol and take drugs, and we see that by the litter of empty cans or empty bottles that we find there, wherever they've got them from, and it's clearly not from the premises at the moment, because that's not selling alcohol, but that's just a fact. That's what we see. So, and that's really all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Okay. Of the ward council, of the committee councillors, any more questions for Councillor McManus? No. Okay. Right, Mr. Craig.
Chair, thank you very much. I'll be as brief as I possibly can.
Mr. Craig, take as long as you want.
Okay, I'm grateful. Just really to reiterate, you've heard from Natalie. I think she's spoken well. She's been candid in her responses. She's given good answers to the questions posed. I think the Councillor McManus has been fair, actually, and she's obviously got concerns in the area, but I am bound to point out that the concerns she's raised in relation to this application are speculative. She's mentioned about need and the number of premises in the area. I would just say that need is not a consideration on the Licensing Act. This isn't in a cumulative impact area, and so accordingly, that isn't a consideration. Members of the public, I'm not, obviously, Councillor McManus will have discussed with her ward members, with her obviously voters within the area, local residents. Don't doubt that for a second, but none of them made representations themselves in relation to this application, which they were at liberty to do. And I would just make the point: this shop is running presently, and there have been no complaints in relation to antisocial behaviour linked to these premises. The police have looked at this application. They've clearly considered the application because they've asked for further conditions. And so, and I would just say here what I would say in relation to any such application: if the premises aren't being run in a way that is satisfactory, then there are review mechanisms in place to address that. So this is an application with some targeted and well considered and well thought out conditions that will mitigate any of the concerns I would submit. And so for that reason, I would invite you to grant the application. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Craig, you know what I'm going to ask you now. Are you satisfied that you've had all you wish to say?
I am, Chair. Thank you.
Are you, Mrs. Councillor McManus, you happy you've had enough to say?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, at this point, I'll have to ask you to be excluded from the meeting under Regulation 4(2) of the Licensing Act, because we will now determine the application. Normally, we would ask you to wait outside and we'd give you the decision, unless it was going to be a long hall. But on this occasion, because of what's happening with the computers and everything, we'll be communicating to all parties within 5 working days our decision. Okay.
That's fine. Am I okay to leave now, Chair? Because I'm actually,
Yes.
as you can see, currently in work. So
Yes.
I'll leave if that's okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
for
your time.
attending.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye, Natalie.
Bye-bye.
Off. There you go. Well, that went all right, didn't it? You can put your mute back on now, George. Can't hear you, George.
I can now.
All right.
Has the webcast finished?
I'm just going to check. Is
No.
everybody off? Is everybody off that should be off?
Everybody's off, but the webcast is still running. Do you want me to pause it while you make the decision?
Well, we
Yeah.
can't have. Yeah, we can't have that, can we?
Okay.